All right, check the mic. We're live. The Lions get the win, man. They played to win. They don't care. 40-34 over the San Francisco 49ers. What a game. Awesome back and forth game. The neither team was really getting any defensive stops, but two Kirby Joseph interceptions, really the difference in this one in the second half. Lions get the win in a meaningless game, Sam.
Yeah, and again, like that to me is the biggest story. Like in this game that literally meant nothing to Detroit other than the risk of injury before next week, which means everything to Detroit. The Lions are out there. This might be the most unhinged thing Dan Campbell has done. He's just out here going, it's just another game. We're going to go hell for leather like every other game we play. And he hangs 40 on the 49ers. Sam Laporta is out there getting the head knocked off him every 5 seconds, and they're just like rolling. Nah, we're not going to bench anyone. We're not going to rest anyone. We're not going to protect anybody. Everyone's out there playing hard for this game, and if we lose half the team to injury before the game next week that means everything, so be it.
It's a culture thing, right? Like you could buy into that, right? I mean, this is how he does it. This was no different than the last game of 2022. Lions get eliminated in the 4:00 window. Then they go play Sunday Night Football. We thought it could have been for a playoff spot, but he said, hey, they at least got to knock the Packers out of their playoff spot with the Sunday night win. It's a culture thing. And look, I think that matters. I think the fourth down thing matters, right? It's like this is their identity. This is what they do. And I think they'll play every game and win and just, stay sharp. I think that matters. I think that's why they are where they are. It's the whole culture thing. And look, I get the injury aspect of it. That's certainly the more logical way of doing things. But over time, is it actually, right? If this is how you always operate and you're consistent, this is what makes the Lions, and this is what makes Dan Campbell, I think, maybe the best coach in the NFL right now, besides maybe Andy Reid.
It's certainly a part of it. I mean, between that attitude of we're just here playing football and the trick plays that are every week, a big part of this offense. And they were making a big deal of this, Troy Aikman on the broadcast, sort of like this is how they make it fun for everybody. Like the attitude thing keeps everybody sharp and focused and engaged and like really wanting to play hard. The trick plays make it fun. So you got on the one hand this pincer approach to getting everybody motivated, the really sort of hardcore focus, like rah-rah stuff. And then the other side, you're also still making it fun because you got Penei Sewell faking an end around, right? Or, the hook and ladder plays and all those kinds of things. So I think they have this fascinating mix of like really keying everybody up from a physical standpoint and a motivational standpoint, but also making it remain fun, like not having everyone ground down by that intensity every week.
Yeah, and look, I think we've said before, the Lions, their fans, we love them. I mean, I love everything about the way the team's built. So much respect for what Brad Holmes has done. I think the way he's worked with Dan Campbell. I think this starts in their acquisitions, right? They got these types of players. They got players that wanted to play hard, that wanted to, have that the knee biting attitude that we always joked about with Dan Campbell's first press conference. It all works together, man. And the other aspect of it that is fascinating is, look, both of these teams were really beat up. As Troy and Joe were saying, 16 players for each on IR. Forget the exact tally, but I think it's similar. The Lions have been able to overcome that in part because of the depth that they've created. And we've been talking the last few weeks, just a revolving door of defensive players that they've had to put in there, but there's still a few core guys left. And even with those injuries, they weren't afraid, right? Saying, hey, we also have a short week, going to play Minnesota or, against Minnesota next week. It's a short week with the Monday Night Football game. So I think the attitude thing that Dan Campbell and that they bring to the table does them better in the long run. And then the other aspect of it, they failed on one of their fourth downs. They scored a touchdown on another fourth down, and then they had another fourth down conversion that eventually led to a field goal. I mean, just in those three moves, they give up a field goal, essentially net out an extra point by going for it, and net out an extra field goal. The fourth down decisions, I think overall still working in their favor with the way they play.
Yeah, but again, like every week, it's the high leverage plays. Like they're going to give you the opportunities, and they blew one early where it was 4th and 3 from the the 5 or something like that, like deep into the red zone. They gave up that one, but they get it back later on. Yeah, it's such a fascinating thing to watch because overall, I think it's working in their favor, but they are going to give teams those shots to hit them with a couple of those big high leverage plays and turn the entire game in their direction.
They hit the lateral play to Jameson Williams, and I think this is why they're America's team, Sam. Not only do they have, like, they were faking end arounds to Penei Sewell. I think Joe and Troy just missed that on the replay, or they didn't mention the 330-pounder was coming around, as eye candy, the eye candy Penei Sewell play. But the pitch play, amon-ra St. Brown on third and long too, right? They're dialing this up to third and long. They get Jameson Williams in space. I saw the Coach Speak Index, that Twitter account, posting old quotes from Ben Johnson when he was saying, look, people figured out option football, and you'll appreciate this, the pitch relationship and how to do it. And he's like, what's the difference? It's just down the field further. So this is a legitimate part of the Lions offense, is, setting up these pitch plays.
Yeah, I mean, they were they were bringing it up at the halftime to Jason Kelce, because obviously Travis Kelce is one of the biggest kind of exponents of this kind of thing. And Jason was saying that Travis says all the time that it's like the single biggest unexploited edge in football, that people do not do it enough. Like, this is a massive area for potential explosive plays, and teams almost simply aren't doing it. A couple of teams do it every now and again, and the Lions obviously do it more than anybody else. We've had Kevin Kelly, the high school coach who never punts and always, runs these lateral plays on the show back when we were doing it for PFF. I mean, he's making the same point, right? Like, you can coach this stuff so that it works, and the Lions have got it pretty well down.
Yeah, they do. What about the Lions defense? This felt like, if you remember the way last year's game flow went, they had a lot of games where the pass defense looked weak, and you would say, look, the Lions offense is great, but this pass defense is never going to get through the playoffs. But they would do this, like in the second half, kind of crack down. I mean, they didn't stop San Francisco at all in the first half, and it was really an impressive Kyle Shanahan, Brock Purdy type of game here. Ricky Pearsall getting his. We can talk about them in a sec. But in the second half, now I think one of them was just, there's 2 interceptions. Brock Purdy, just a straight up miss, throwing it right to Kirby Joseph. Second one, good disguise, great read by Kirby Joseph, kind of baiting him. But this was very much bend, break a lot, but when you needed to, don't break. And so they still give up 34 points. Is that an issue with Minnesota coming up and, of course, the playoffs?
I mean, it's definitely an issue, but they would hardly be the first team to roll into the playoffs with an incredibly formidable offense and not much defense to speak of. And when you do have potential ball hawks to turn the ball over, like, that can be enough. And Kirby Joseph now leads the NFL interceptions. Kirby Joseph in this year has a legitimate defensive player of the year case. I mean, there's no obvious, clear, guaranteed, pass rusher that's going to win it, right? So if you start turning the secondary, Mina Kimes is making the case for Patrick Surtain. I think you could make the case for Kyle Hamilton, who was great up at the line of scrimmage. They moved him back, and the Ravens secondary is transformed. Like, Kyle Hamilton has a case, but I think Kirby Joseph has a case. That guy's a ball hawk for this defense. Okay, the first one was basically pitched right to him. The second one was a really nice break on the ball, though, and like, Purdy thought that was open, and it wasn't, because Joseph was able to break on it. He's been really important for that secondary and for that defense overall, that is kind of in bits, but you make 9 turnovers and you're able to offset a lot of that.
Yeah, giving extra possessions to that offense is extremely valuable. I think he had an interception on the negated play too. There was a holding in the secondary where he makes a diving pick. It probably wouldn't have had the opportunity for that had the holding not occurred, but still a great play. He is an outstanding center fielder, and there haven't been a whole lot. Remember, every time we're scouting every year, where are all the center fielders? For years, teams were looking for an Earl Thomas type, and Kevin Byard came in for a little bit and was kind of that guy. There hasn't been a whole lot of true center field, legitimate ball hawk types in the secondary over the last few years, and Joseph's become one of the best with his ability to find the ball as a ball magnet, as they say, Sam. But as far as the concerning part for the Lions defense, Brock Purdy goes 27 of 35 for 377. A lot of open throws in there, some really nice tight window throws from him as well. couple misses that he would want back, but also 3 touchdowns, another one on the ground. This is the best Purdy's looked in a while, especially if you just take out those 2 bad throws. And they got Ricky Pearsall involved, the rookie, 8 catches for 141 and a touchdown.
I mean, it's definitely a major problem for the Lions. Like this, they've lost so many bodies and so many players to that defense that, they're not likely to have a performance where they just completely shut down everybody they face in the playoffs and, they're able to roll. They're going to be in shootouts. Like, the good news is that their offense looks as formidable as anybody. They still have incredible playmakers, weaponry. If they get David Montgomery back, they've got reinforcements coming as well. So, that's something in their favor. And then as much as the defense is going to give up a ton of yards, points, and do a lot of bending, they do have the ability to turn the ball over, which is important. Like, you can have not a great defense, but if you get a couple of turnovers, you can give up a lot of yardage and a lot of distance and still not do any damage if you're able to steal the ball a couple of times.
So many of our references, you and I, we go back like a decade and a half with some of our references. That was the 2009 Saints who won the Super Bowl. Remember, great offense with Drew Brees. Defense gave up a ton of yards, but they had a lot of turnovers, right? They had a lot of big plays to give the offense the ball back. So that could be the formula for Detroit. Other thing to highlight too, Jahmyr Gibbs goes 18 carries. Again, he went over 20 carries in the last game. Didn't wear down at all. Had the 30-yarder late. If anything, he's fresh in the fourth quarter, still looking fast. He did a nice job on the ground. And when they spelled him with, Craig Reynolds and Jamar Jefferson, they did a pretty nice job as well. So Lions, finding a way to do it on the ground without Montgomery.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be concerned for Jahmyr Gibbs short term as a bell cow. Maybe if you had to do that for the entire season, a 17-game schedule is worth of that kind of workload. That would be maybe a different thing. But if you have to lean on Jahmyr Gibbs for a few game stretch of being your every down running back, I don't think that's a problem at all.
Did you see John Lynch a little pissed off on one of the 4th down touchdown to Amon-Ra St. Brown? He was upset up in the to me, it's just a reminder. I feel like we maybe talk about tanking and draft position too much. I think it's just a reminder. Like, the Niners are sitting here with 6 wins coming into the game. They're out of the playoffs. They have nothing to play for, but they still want to win. They're all professionals. They have pride. They also think it's a culture thing too. The Niners played hard, right? They came out getting after it. Even if they couldn't stop the Lions a whole lot, their offense was cooking. They want to win, right? So it was just a good reminder to me. They're looking to win. They want everybody to play to the best of their ability. They see that as a long-term benefit. And you could argue that Dan Campbell's ability to make it through a 3-win season, make it through the 9-8 season where they were just, a lot of disappointment not making the playoffs, but keeping that consistency has helped get the Lions to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's like San Francisco's position is slightly different to the Giants or the Raiders, who are like staring down the barrel of the number 1 overall pick. Like, the 49ers are fairly well locked into a middle first round, high middle first round pick. This game didn't mean an awful lot to them either way. So yeah, you might as well try and win it against a good team. An NFC Championship rematch from a year ago. Like, there's sort of symbolism. It's home. Like, yeah, there are reasons to win this game. Had they got 1 win and were like on the way to the number 1 overall pick that was about to change their quarterback future, maybe John Lynch would have felt differently about it.
Maybe he would have. That's true. We got a lot of Lions fans. A lot of people showed up. I'm assuming they're all Lions fans. We appreciate you. Hit the subscribe button if you will, if you want to keep joining us. Love talking the Lions. They're America's team, Sam. That's what they are.
Lions fans here to pay the bills.
They're here to pay the bills. That's what they do. And Troy kept comparing Dan Campbell to his old coach, Jimmy Johnson. And, of course, Jimmy led America's team. And then maybe that's the best comparison. The Lions are America's team. How can you not love the lovable Lions, the way they play football, the way their offense is built, the players on their team? Got to love the Lions. We're not biased at all, but, got to love the Lions here.
They're a fun team. I mean, they were fun last year when they, made it a couple of plays away from getting to the Super Bowl. And the first thing they did coming out of the game, Dan Campbell was like, we may never get back there again. And they still might not. I mean, they might, who knows? They've backed that up with a 14-2 season with a game in week 18 to decide the number 1 seed and the division and potentially be the best team in the NFC again with that laundry list of injuries they've had this season is insanely impressive. I mean, say what you like about Dan Campbell being unhinged and crazy and, their approach to this, but it's working. I mean, this is a really impressive season from a team that easily could have unspooled the same way San Francisco did, the same way several other teams that got beset by injuries have.
All right, Sam. So this all sets up the showdown. It was already set up. Tonight didn't affect anything, but Lions-Vikings next week. We're going to have a lot on this game this week. So Wednesday's show, it's New Year's Day. We're just regular time slot, 10:30 a.m. right here on YouTube. We're going with the regular show, but we're going to have guest from the Vikings, Matthew Collar from Purple Insider, very close friend of the show, and then Tim Twentyman from the Lions beat talking Lions. So that'll be a fun get both sides, both angles, the Sam Darnold's Vikings, Jared Goff's Lions, what they're thinking going into this final game here. And then, of course, our preview show, 10:30 a.m. on Thursday.
Yes.
I was purposely
good show.
Purposely having awkward silence. I don't want to leave. Any other questions in the chat? We got people here watching. Anything else we got to cover here? People calling for the Vikings being America's team here. Darnold will throw some interceptions by the nature of their offense. I mean, there is an aggressiveness. It is funny. I think the Vikings do a great job schematically, but I think it's different from what Ben Johnson in Detroit does, right? Like Detroit, every year, just like, how did they get this guy into this amount of space? And by the way, he's so much faster than you a lot of the times, right? With Minnesota, they scheme it up really well as well, but you're like, man, Darnold's hitting this pinpoint, downfield throw or tight window throw. They have, great playmakers on the other end catching it. A little different, but I think two great offensive schemes and QBs executing at a high level.
It should be a really fun game. I mean, obviously they're both 14-2 at this stage. They're both really good teams. It was very close the last time they played each other, and I think like Detroit is more banged up now than they were then. So, I mean, it should be a really fun encounter, fun back and forth.
How many points will it take to win? I say 33. 33-30. Another game. Was that the score of the last game? Probably something similar.
29-31 or something, I think the last game was.
Two dome teams. They're always, going to play indoors. They're going to be it's conducive to the speed of both teams. And I think there's going to be a lot of points. Tough to play defense in that environment. And we'll talk about it, especially Thursday, but Wednesday as well. Goff has carved up Brian Flores blitz. That started last year. And the Vikings don't change their game plan. They blitz 50% of the time, if not more, against this Lions team. And Ben Johnson and Jared Goff, remember there was a point where nobody had answers for it early in the year. And it's like, well, the Lions do. Last year they did. They always seem to have answers for Flores and the blitz. Yeah,
the first game was interesting because I think it wasn't the same as last year where they clearly just had the answers and the Flores defense was basically getting nothing done at all. They were actually causing problems, the Flores defense, and Goff was just making the plays anyway. Like, it wasn't that the answers were easy and he was just pitch and catch. It was like he just made some really low percentage plays sequentially, and credit to him for that. But like, I think it was a much more even chess battle than it was previously, where the Goff and Ben Johnson offense just shredded that defense.
All right, man. Well, it's going to be great. It's Sunday Night Football this week. We'll be talking about it on the Wednesday show and on Thursday. As always, appreciate everybody for being here on the live reactions. Appreciate the Lions fans and 49ers fans who showed up. Hit subscribe, hit the thumbs up on the way out, and we'll see you again on Wednesday with more Check the Mic.